Hello, and welcome to another episode of Consoloscopy, where we go deep on consoles and controllers. Today, we have a PS5 controller. It is my neighbor's. It had some drift. And to test that drift, we went over to this website, Gamepad Testers, and you can see here it keeps jumping to the left, and that's not me pulling to the left. That's me barely touching it and it wanting to stay to the left. Going other directions, trying other buttons. Everything else seems to be working and checking out, but there's that, it keeps popping to the left real hard. I figured that's it. So this thing needs some cleaning. Definitely been sitting for a while, or just has been through it. Maybe since the early days of the PlayStation 5, but I figure I'd go ahead and give this thing a pretty good wash. I'm not going to do a full breakdown. I'm not going to get all the way down to the buttons and everything, but as far as the shell goes and some of the more accessible parts, I will definitely be getting a good wipe down on the whole thing. First things first, got to open this controller up, and basically you'll need a pry tool, and these controllers are fairly resilient. They don't take scratches very easily, so I'd still be careful, but this part isn't too scary. It's a little tricky to catch this groove right here, but I think maybe this should be the first step, is kind of getting that black piece up from the very bottom. And then I think from there everything else is a little bit easier. Yep, just carefully pull back right there, and the pants are off of the PlayStation 5 controller. Next up is the L1 and R1 buttons. Kind of get that same tool up in there, and not too hard, just pry back and they pop off. After that, all 4 screws that will need to be unscrewed are now accessible. You see them right there on both sides. While we're getting into this thing, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Like, comment, share, all the things that help whenever it comes to the YouTube algorithm. Definitely helps for future projects and just making sure people want to actually see this sort of content. Thanks for watching. Sometimes you gotta wonder how these things get this dirty. This is screw number 5, and it is the exact same as the other 4 screws that you've already removed. These are GameTech's stick drift fixers. They require a little bit of soldering, and these things only cost about $15 and about $5 more on top of that after shipping, at least to where I live, as you see right here. So, a couple of things. As you see, I'm putting it on upside down. So, this particular fix can be used for several different gamepads, Xbox, PlayStation 4. They're not all going to be upside down, but for the PlayStation 5, it is. So, for soldering, you need your solder. I have a little vacuum to keep the fumes away, your solder gun, and your flux right there. I'm not going to pretend like I'm that great at micro soldering or soldering at all. You'll see through this process that it's just good enough, and if it's just good enough for me, it's probably just good enough for you. Look up any videos you might want to know about soldering. You can see here, it doesn't take that long. One issue I kept running into, though, is that this little pad that we're adding on is very flimsy and wants to stick up. So whenever I solder it, I have to go back and, as you see, push down on it and re-solder it, get that flow back going so that it stays flat. Now, not every single one of these has to be soldered, but this one, where the cables come out, where those 2 little wires are, enable me to actually solder all of the main points. Ugh, ugly, I know, and that's after going back to fix it, so. But again, I was confident that it was going to do the job. So here we have the wires that are actually kind of in the way of a couple of the solder points. So I was going to try to adjust them to where they're the least amount in the way. You'll see as we line this up that those wires will be underneath some of the points, so it is my understanding that not all the points need to be soldered, therefore I will not solder all of these points, specifically the spot where the wires are. Also, I know that one of these sides does not have drift on them, but most controllers, or at least many controllers, will end up getting drift on one or the other. This one might end up having drift on both one day, so why not go ahead and add them both, just in case to future-proof it. That's the plan. If you're a professional, this is probably pretty hard to watch. But if you're like me, mainly just a hobbyist, you should have the "I can do that too" attitude when you watch this, even though they look that bad. I always go back with some isopropyl alcohol to get all that flux and whatever other residue still left behind cleaned up. So the idea, obviously, is if your drift is left or right, you would turn that screw, and it would pull it one way or the other. Same thing with vertical, you'd do the other screw that says vertical, and adjust it as it needs adjusting. Now this was a pretty finicky sort of drift, it wasn't a consistent drift, so I look forward to seeing how this is going to play out. In order to do that, obviously, you've got to have your battery. So go ahead and plug your battery back in. Be careful with all the ribbon cables. Very careful. But before we get to testing, this thing has got to get at least a little cleaned up. I mean, like hand sweat? Crumbs? Yeah, let's clean that up. While we get this thing nice and clean, another quick reminder, subscribe, comment, like, the things that YouTube algorithm love. I do appreciate everybody watching these videos, and hopefully everybody gets a little something out of it. Enjoy. Isopropyl alcohol, a little controversial to use on controllers and other parts that can be quite sensitive to the alcohol. It's my understanding that doing it every once in a while doesn't hurt it. So it really does the trick whenever it comes to cleaning, especially parts that have electronics hooked up to it. So that's what I do. Yes, I did rub off those 3 little dashes right there, but I was smarter on this side. Hey look, I don't know what else to tell you. It was a pretty dirty controller, just trying to get it clean. Alright, let's plug it up and see what we've got. Well, that's not what I was expecting. It appears as though those pads fixed it before any fine-tuning. It doesn't seem to be drifting at all. It's not hopping over to the left. Not the way this was really meant to go, but maybe that's all it needed? According to this gamepad tester, they're good to go. Clicking in L3 and being hard on it, so I don't know. I'm gonna call it fixed, even though I really didn't get to do the purpose of this video. So anybody who's trying to figure those things out, I'm sorry, this was not the controller to do it on. The drift was, I guess, too easy to fix. Maybe it was the soldering job? Yeah, there's no way, but Fortunately, it seems to be holding up. We're a couple weeks removed, and my neighbor said it's still good to go. So it's much cleaner. Drift is gone. Looks good.